Chapter 18. Eloise inspected the pie while red syrup oozed from the edges to drip on the floor. Was there anything more lovely than this cherry pie? At this moment, nothing came close. If only it tasted as good as it looked. She had her doubts, from previous experience, and therefore proceeded carefully. This was her third attempt at making pie just this week, and she hadn't met with success yet. Neither of the previous 2 pies was worthy of presentation. She must have gotten a few things right this time. Helen suggested she practice her baking skills with pies. They were harder to mess up, she'd said. Eloise wondered how this could be true. The past week of a smoke-filled house told a different story. The overcast skies brought the night earlier than she'd expected. She rushed home from the mercantile, enjoying the leaves that had turned vibrant shades of yellow and were beginning to fall. There was a nip in the air most nights, but she looked forward to the evenings snuggled close to the fire. Taking a quick glance out the window, she went back to the table and flaked a bit of pie crust off the edge. Philip should have been home by now. The crust was crisp and rich with the taste of butter. So far, it was a success. She waited to cut a slice until she had the chance to show it off. Where was he? Still giddy over the pie, she pumped cold water to fill a pan. "It's perfect," she spoke to the dishpan, watching the clear water splash into it.
"Miss me?"
said Philip, circling her with his arms. She hadn't heard him enter over the sound of the water pump. Embracing her, he kissed the side of her neck, just under her ear, taking her breath away. She turned in his arms, and as he leaned down for another kiss, she was already up on her toes to give him one. Their lips brushed, and he pulled her close, hands on her hips, pressing her body against the counter. His hands trailed around behind her, tucking her body against his. "Phil," she mumbled between kisses. "Philip, stop."
"Hmm?"
he asked, drawing a breath. "You're covered in soot. You know you're supposed to wash before coming home. You've ruined my apron. Again." Philip smiled, a slow grin that made her shiver and showed his disinterest in her apron. She had black marks on her face, her hands, and the one obvious handprint on her hip where he'd first held her.
"Then take it off,"
he said. "Philip," she said, blushing.
"I think all wives of blacksmiths should have black aprons."
He brushed his lips across her cheekbone and whispered,
"Black dresses, black hair."
And he took her into his arms again, kissing her like he'd been gone a week, not just the few hours since lunch. She giggled. Blocking his mouth with her hand, she wiggled away. "I've made another pie." His face gave away his lack of confidence in her abilities.
"Oh?"
"It's beautiful. Come see." He laughed at her enthusiasm. Eloise turned and pushed him toward her latest attempt. It sat displayed in the center of a well-set table with a crisply ironed cloth.
"Mmm.
He breathed it in, seemingly surprised.
It does look amazing. Ellie, honey, I think this is the winner. We should preserve it for the fair next year."
Now he teased, pulling her close to his side.
"Minimal overspill, no charred edges. I trust the sugar-to-salt ratio was put to order?"
She smacked his chest. "Oh, stop it. Honestly, you needn't remind me. Let's just eat it first. Before dinner?"
"Let me wash up and we'll eat."
He kissed the top of her head. "I'll help." Trying and failing to control her expression, she unbuttoned his shirt that was covered in dry sweat from working in a sweltering forge all day. 1, 2, 3. She made it 4 buttons down before he grabbed both of her hands in his.
"Ellie, honey, we could skip dinner?"
A giggle escaped, and she turned bright red before spinning away. "No, we eat." She took the knife and cut into the pie. "I have been waiting and waiting to show off this lovely, delightful, gorgeous, No." No, no, no. Struggling to lift the first slice from the pan, she stomped her foot. The bottom half was black and stuck tightly to the pan. It was burned into a solid black mess. Roars of laughter erupted behind her. Philip rested a hand on her back, his shoulders shaking as he observed the ruined pie from behind her. He gasped between laughs and crushed her into a bear hug.
Oh, Mrs. Davidson, my light, I love you so very much. So very much.
She sank into his hug, breathing in the strong smell of iron and smoke. Chickens will eat burnt cherries again? She mumbled against his chest. Placing another kiss on the top of her head, he grabbed the warm pan with one hand and walked out the back door.
Consider it done.
Eloise did not waste time on self-pity. What was one pie? Or 3. She had other talents that were yet to be discovered, she was sure. She couldn't suppress a laugh of her own as she sliced bread from Anderson's bakery. Serving scoops of mashed squash on their plates, she sprinkled a touch of sugar on each. Still smiling, she moved around her kitchen and hummed, "Can she bake a cherry pie, Billy boy, Billy boy?" Bang! The unmistakable sound of a gunshot froze her mid-step, and a sickly black liquid spilled from the sides of the pot she carried. She dropped it, and it crashed to the floor. The liquid splashed on her skirts. The rest seeped into the wooden boards and stretched across the cracks in the floor. She reached to cover her eyes from the horror, but could not, as her hands were covered in the blood from the pot. A new, burnt red puddle oozed toward her from under the stove. She stayed rooted to the floor, knowing there was nowhere to run. She had been here before. She knew this place. If she turned, the darkness would be making its way to her from the window and under the door. Drip, drip, drip. Drops of red splattered on her arm, falling from the ceiling. Covering her face with the skirt of her apron, she cried, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me," she whispered. Hunching her shoulders and keeling back and forth, she chanted the words, "I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." The red pools advanced from all directions, closing her in. Someone or something held her heart and squeezed the life from it. Any moment, death would claim her too.
Elle, wake up.
Tobias stood over her bed.
I'm here.
He found her hand and held it tightly, sitting on the edge of her bed.
Hush now, I'm here. You're okay. You're safe.
Tobias? She sat up and leaned into his warmth. Cold sweat beaded on her forehead. He held her and lent his strength. Familiar. Safe. Slowly the vice on her heart released, and she could breathe again. If I had stayed with him that day, instead of going to play on the ice with Jessica, he would still be alive.
Hush,
Tobias said.
You don't know that. Nothing that happened is your fault. I don't want to ever hear you speak like that again.
She shook her head, a lump in her throat preventing her from speaking. Tobias sat her up, away from him, and his hands gripped her shoulders. His big brother expression had never been stronger. He gave her a little shake when she didn't look him in the eye.
Listen to me. Philip made his own choices that day that had nothing to do with you. Nothing. You are not to hold yourself responsible for what happened.
He released a hand and tipped her chin until she was forced to look at him.
You hear me?
She nodded, and something cracked inside of her. It was as if the chains that bound her had been unshackled. The release was painful, and it brought a new flood of grief. She blinked as her vision blurred and streams of tears ran from both eyes. Tobias pulled her to his chest and held her until she stopped crying. A lamp burned low on her dresser, and she noticed her brother was still fully dressed. "Were you going somewhere? What time is it?"
Late,
he said.
Not yet midnight. Mary and I walked her home.
He chuckled.
Her father was waiting up. We'd lost track of time. I was just coming to bed and heard you thrashing about again.
Eloise moved over and pulled the covers up, allowing room for him to stretch his legs. Keeping his arm around her, he relaxed against the headboard. Resting her head on his shoulder, she asked, "Do you love her?" Tobias stared across her room. The curtain covered the window, and the moonlight cast a few streaks on the floor wherever it found a way in. He sighed.
I love how I feel when she's with me. I love her smile. When she knows I've had a long day and I'm tired, she'll sit with me and let me hold her hand. She doesn't talk or pester. She serves her parents, working at the mercantile. I love how she brightens when I walk into the store, and how she brushes my hand with hers when she thinks no one's looking.
Tobias pulled Eloise in for a hug.
My men are on to me. I've been running my own errands to the mercantile long enough. Dee has joshed about it often enough.
"I'm sorry," Eloise said.
For what?
"For being in the way?"
Stop that. You're not in the way. You're my sister, and I've loved you from the moment my 4-year-old arms held you for the first time and your pink face screamed at me.
Eloise elbowed him, and he released her. "I mean it, though. You don't need to try to hide from me anymore. I know I've been less than hospitable toward her, and I'm sorry about that. I shouldn't bring my mess into your life. You can invite her over whenever you want to. I will be fine."
She would like that.
Tobias scooted lower on her bed, crossing his arms together.
She is pretty amazing if you get to know her.
"She'd better be. I'd expect no less for you." Eloise turned to Tobias and gently brushed her fingers around his eye. "Has she forgiven Zeke?" A week had passed since the fight, and the purple bruising had subsided, leaving only a smudge of yellow and green that didn't show in the dimly lit room. He jerked his head away.
Stop.
He snatched her pillow and shoved it behind his head.
We could have them both over, one grand dinner party. You and Zeke, me and Maribeth. It'll be great.
Eloise pulled at the pillow, but he grabbed her hands and held them between his strength outmatching hers, 10-1. "Stop putting Zeke and me together. He's got plans that don't include me. I'm not so desperate to chase after an adventurer who doesn't even know what he wants with his life."
Who says anything about life plans? I like him, and you can't tell me you don't enjoy his company. I say we invite them over, and they can make amends, and then Mary will take me into her arms and kiss me sweetly, and all will be forgiven. In the meantime, you have something to do, and won't be lonesome while I sneak out back and look at the flowers, or whatever nonsense I use to lure her outside.
Eloise twisted her hands away from him and attempted to shove him out of her bed. He wouldn't budge. "Get your muddy shoes off my bed. I'm tired."
Sure thing, sis.
He rolled off, but took her pillow and blankets with him. "Tobias, would you knock it off?" She grabbed at her bedding, and he let her take them.
Quiet now. You're going to wake the baby.
He poured himself a drink of water from the pitcher on her dresser.
So, we'll have a dinner party tomorrow?
"No." She spread the quilt back over her bed and ducked just as Tobias tossed the pillow at her head. She glared at him before picking it off the floor. "I don't want to host a dinner with Zeke." Tobias frowned.
I thought you two were friendly.
"Well, you thought wrong,"
He asked about you when I picked up the order for the boys this week.
he said. Now that her bed was made again, she folded back the blankets and slipped between the sheets. Tobias swirled the water in his cup.
I told him he should come by and see for himself.
"You didn't." She jerked her face back to him. "Tobias," she smacked her hands down on the bed, "would you quit meddling in my life? I told you you could see Maribeth without sneaking around. I didn't say I wanted to see anybody." Tobias grunted.
Okay, suit yourself. I like Zeke just fine. I'll have him over, and you can do as you please.
"Go away," she pointed to the door. "I'm tired." He smiled, probably thinking he'd won.
Good night.